Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date. My name is Erich Kurschat, and I am the owner of Harmony Insights LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants using the DISC personality assessment, a lot of which is done online these days as people are working remotely. I'm also the founder of HR Hot Seat, an inclusive mastermind community of, as we say, real HR pros solving real HR problems. You can find out more about HR Hot Seat at hrhotseat.com. Today is a lunch date. I started doing this at least a couple of months ago now. I've lost track of time, but really to remain connected with people who inspire me. And our special guest today, Brenda Meller of Meller Marketing, has made that short list. So Brenda, welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date.
Well, thank you. And I'm so looking forward to chatting with all of you today. Thank you so much, Erich.
We're going to have a blast. As they usually do, this 30 minutes is going to go by in the blink of an eye. But we're going to have fun in the meantime and learn a thing or two as we go. Brenda, I'm thrilled to have you with us. And first of all, just how are you these days? There's so much going on. I don't know if it's even easy to articulate how we're doing in the midst of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a little bit of like we do a little bit of a therapy chat before we do the real chat, right? Nowadays, like you check in with people mentally, like how are you doing? How are you doing generally, and how are you doing today? Because there's two questions there. Like generally, I would say great. You know, we've had some highs, we've had some lows. We've got 4 of us in the household here: my husband, myself, and 2 school-age children, a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. So you know, anybody else who has kids at home, you know what that means. You know, we're all struggling with the Wi-Fi and I have a home office. My husband doesn't. The kids kind of work in the living room in their room. So we're trying to keep that going. Today is a busy day for me. I'm kind of jumping in between sessions all day. So when you talk about Zoom fatigue, like I love presenting. I love being in sessions like today. But by 4 o'clock today, I'm going to need an adult beverage and the couch. That'll be about it.
Right. I understand that completely. Well, we'll try to have this be not taxing.
I love it.
For
like
you.
Being in, I love it. It just like I'm an introvert at heart. So afterwards I'll need quiet time. Like I'm not sure if anybody else can relate to that. Like I really do enjoy seeing faces and seeing people and sharing things, but it's like the way I will need to recharge afterwards is to kind of like shut everything off and just be not in front of a camera for a little bit.
Yes, which is a great teaser for a conversation we're going to tell you all about toward the end of this discussion coming up on July 29th that Brenda and I are both very excited about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Brenda, people know that I choose my guests for these lunch dates and they choose the topics. So rather than me coming to you and saying, hey, Brenda, I'd love for you to tell us everything that you know about bowling alleys. I don't know why I thought of bowling alleys.
I know nothing about bowling alleys, nothing.
I come to you and I say, I would love for you to bring to us a topic that you are passionate about. And you, for this conversation, suggested a title, How to Unlock the Power of LinkedIn. I know you to be a LinkedIn expert. Why is this something of all of the things that you could do in the realm of, in the space of marketing or anything else that might fall within your skill set? What is it about LinkedIn that you get so passionate about?
You know, I guess for me, I was anti-social media once upon a time. So I start with that. You know, I was anti-Facebook. Why do I, as a married woman, need to be talking to people that aren't my husband and my family online? And, you know, I got on LinkedIn, I think it was in 2006, and I used it in the height of the recession in 2008 to make a career move. I was working for an organization and I kind of hit the proverbial glass ceiling. I was told in so many words, this is as high as you're going in the organization. There's no more leadership opportunities. And I tried to struggle with that for a little bit and kind of work my way. And I'm like, you know what? It was male dominated and there was no way I was going to break that. So I said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go elsewhere. But the economy was crashing at the time. And I knew that my competitors were people who had, you know, 40, 60, 80 hours a week to search for a job. I had a long commute, a family. I didn't have the time to dedicate to that. So I kind of leaned into LinkedIn back in the day and I made a direct connection with the hiring manager through LinkedIn. And I was like, wow, this is going to change the game in terms of job search. You can avoid the black hole by using this network. And it just really changed the whole process for me. And I kind of had this mindset going in. I was like, wow, what are the possibilities of this platform? And then when I started using it, I realized there was working professionals who were using it even more heavily than job seekers. So as a marketing professional, I started using the platform to help promote my organization, reach our target audiences, and reach our business goals. And then I had a knack for explaining it to others. And I was doing some public speaking training at the time. I was doing a lot of webinars. And I just really had a knack for helping others with it. And I was building up my online brand without even really realizing it. I started a blog, I was doing webinars and whatnot. And then we had a leadership change at my organization. I was part of the leadership team. I was heading up marketing. The new president coming in decided to make some changes, and marketing was one of them. And they said, "You're going to be with us for 3 months, and you're, and that's it." And I went home. I thought about it for a week. I cried my crocodile tears. I came back in work the next Monday, and I held my head high, and I said, "Today's my last day. Here's why I want this communicated out." And I was professional and everything. Leaving the organization, I have no regrets in terms of that process. And I'm actually grateful that everything happened the way that it did, because I never would have had the courage to go off on my own. So now, Erich, what I do is I help people and businesses unlock the power of LinkedIn. I work with individuals who are, business professionals in just about every area. I work with executives who I like to say are experience rich and social media apprehensive, not quite sure how to use this LinkedIn tool successfully. And lately what I've been doing is, because my business has taken a bit of a hit, as many of us have, with this COVID pandemic and working from home. And a lot of my speaking engagements have canceled. My client retainers have canceled because they've had to adjust their business back. So I decided, what can I do to help continue to unlock the power of LinkedIn for people using the gifts and the talents that I have? And I've really increased LinkedIn Live. I'm doing a lot of interviews, and that's what Erich, you'll be joining me with in July. And then I've also been, I've created a LinkedIn for job seekers, a free weekly webinar series. And I do a Friday group chat with job seekers as well, helping them. I'm a big believer in social media karma, paying it forward, helping others when we can, because I know that those individuals will, think kindly of me, and they'll be able to either pay it forward or return the favor at some point. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. That is excellent context. And you and I were introduced through a common acquaintance.
Yeah.
And, so then I clicked follow or connect with you on LinkedIn. And then suddenly it's Brenda Meller, in a good way. It's every day I see you popping up, almost every day, maybe every day,
Yeah.
seeing you popping up on LinkedIn Live. I know you do Facebook Live.
Mm-hmm.
I see you then when you're working with folks in job transition and having a conversation with them. I see you then shining the spotlight on them, letting others know who they are, what they look like,
Yeah.
in your screenshots anyway for your conversations, and encouraging others to find them and to connect with them. So
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat, my sense from you, and maybe this is a great place to start the conversation, is that LinkedIn is a tool for meaningful connection. That's such a common through line or thread to these lunch date conversations, is meaningful connection.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense from you is that LinkedIn is a tool for meaningful connection, that it's not just a number. It's not how many connections can I amass, but rather how am I able to serve each and every connection that I have in some sort of meaningful way? Am I putting words in your mouth, or is this how you operate?
No, absolutely. I think it's quality over quantity. And sometimes I have people that approach me that say, "Hey, can you help me to become a LinkedIn influencer?" That's an actual LinkedIn term. IN is all capped in there, and it's a certain caliber. It's like a Bill Gates kind of person. Like it's people they tap on the shoulder and they say, "Hey, you are a thought leader. We want you to become an influencer." And I have people that approach me that say, "Hey, can you grow my following? I want to have 7 million followers on LinkedIn, or I want to do some different things." And I'm like, that's not what I do necessarily. And I can point you to other people who maybe are more focused on that as a platform. But really, I'm a marketer at heart. I'm an independent marketing consultant. I don't work for LinkedIn. I don't work for Microsoft. I work for myself and I work for my clients. So I'm always thinking about, as a marketer, I'm always thinking about who's your ideal target audience? What are your business goals? And then when I kind of blend that with LinkedIn, why do people care? And there's some nuances and etiquettes to the network that you can't do the same things on LinkedIn that you do on Facebook. And there's a different type of a quality connection on LinkedIn than some of the other platforms. So certainly having more people following you and having more connections may help you to achieve more of your business goals, but you don't need 5 million followers. You need, maybe 50 or 100 of the
Yeah.
right followers on
Great.
your profile.
Excellent point. So let's start here. It's
Mm-hmm.
important to me, before we get to the actionable tips, or maybe they're woven in, that we really spend some time breaking down the challenges that our audience is facing around this topic of using LinkedIn effectively. I will say just the other
Mm.
day, kind of playing off of the discussion we've already started, is that I got a request from somebody who in their headline claimed to be some LinkedIn expert and all this stuff about I can help you do this in X and Y and Z. And I'm open to learning from anybody who professes to have any expertise.
Sure. Yeah.
So I connected with them,
Mm-hmm.
or he connected with me. I accepted it. First of all, his connection request was not personalized, which
Mm.
told me something right off the bat
He's
about
not a
how he
LinkedIn expert.
approaches, right? So
Yeah.
no
Mm-hmm.
personalization. So I was like, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I connect
Sure.
with him and I see, I could have seen this before, but at the top of his profile, next to his page or next to his picture, and I'm sure there's a name for what that banner is at the top of that picture, it was the
Yeah.
number 18,000. And
Mm.
um, he was proclaiming to the world that he had 18,000 connections. And that's all I needed
Okay.
to know about him, that the connections for him were a number, that I was just a number. I was getting him closer to 19,000. And
Mm-hmm.
especially since the request wasn't personalized, that was
Yeah.
a concern for me. All of that being said, what do you see as some of the challenges that people are facing today, specifically related to using LinkedIn effectively as a means for meaningful connection?
Yeah, really good question. And it kind of depends on how they're using LinkedIn. I feel like many of the most common mistakes I see with people is that they are thinking LinkedIn is kind of one thing. Either they think about it as a job search site, and my profile should look like my resume, which is not exactly true, or they're using it for selling, for business development, and everything they are pushing through is a sales message, and that's not exactly how you should be using it either. Or they just don't really understand it. They're not filling out all the fields, they're not posting regularly, they're not engaging. It's a professional networking site, but there's still a social element of it. You need to participate in conversations with people. So the analogy I like to use is it's kind of like when you pull up to an automotive shop and your car's got some kind of rattling, banging noise, and you pull up to the garage and the mechanic comes out, and right away he says, "Oh, it's your axle rod turbulator, bloody." I mean, I don't know what automotive terms are, but he comes out and he's like, he knows right away what it is because that's what he does for a living. He specializes in that. So usually when people are approaching me and they're saying, "I'm struggling with LinkedIn, I don't know why this isn't working for me," I can look at your profile and within like a minute, I can tell you like exactly what's not working. As long as you're open and receptive to that information, you can make a change, you can improve.
So you said just a minute ago
Mhm.
that LinkedIn doesn't necessarily look like your resume, but so many people are out there, so many
Yeah.
well-intentioned coaches are out there saying that you hit Control C on your resume and then
Yeah.
Control V to paste it into LinkedIn and you're good to go. That the two should mirror each other almost exactly. Why would you say that that is probably not the most efficient use of your LinkedIn space?
So think about your LinkedIn. Let me think about this. Your resume, the goal of a resume is to get you a job. And the goal of your LinkedIn profile is really to set up you in this online professional directory where you might be looking for a job, but you might be using LinkedIn just for networking purposes, not looking for a job necessarily. You might be using LinkedIn to try to sell to people. If you're an independent consultant or if you work for a company, or you might be using it to position yourself for that next rung of leadership, either at your organization or for other organizations, but you don't want to set off any red flags and jeopardize your chances, at your current company at the same time. So there are certainly elements of commonness in each area, whether it's your LinkedIn profile or your resume, but you need to think about, resume has very defined sections in terms of what content you put in there, and what people are expecting as they look at your resume from top to bottom, as they look at the length of it, as you think about ATS friendly formatting, and what the expectations are that we see in there. And there's some common elements in LinkedIn, but then there's some things that are slightly different. And I'll give you just one, for example. There's a section in your LinkedIn profile that's called your about statement. It used to be called summary. And you might think, well, that's the same thing as my objective statement on the resume,
Right.
or if you're experienced, your professional profile statement at the top of your resume. And that in your resume, it's third person, results oriented, marketing professional, blah, blah, blah. Your LinkedIn summary statement or your about statement should be first person. So I think about your about statement it's like me talking to you, Eric. If I were to walk up to you, I wouldn't raise up my hand and say, results-oriented marketing professional who seeks to get results. No, I would use an I statement. Hi, Eric, it's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I help people unlock the power of LinkedIn. How I'm different, I'm a marketer who gets LinkedIn. So I think about it's kind of like my elevator pitch, my quick statement, but the goal on LinkedIn is to keep you on my LinkedIn longer and maybe to get you a click on see more and stay on. Whereas your resume, it's kind of this printed document, and whether it's being scanned electronically or somebody's reading through it, there's just different uses for each of
Right.
them.
The way I've told people, and I've done a fair bit of career coaching myself, is that
Mhm.
LinkedIn or the resume reduces you to a black and white sheet of bullet points, third
Yeah.
person bullet points, whereas
Mhm.
LinkedIn is your opportunity for the first time, perhaps in the process,
Yeah.
to really give people a sense of who you are, what you value, where personality can come through. And there are some folks online that are really adamant about the fact that resumes can also be personable. I think it's a little bit more difficult. But I think when it
Yeah.
comes to LinkedIn, that's where that personality can come through, where you're no longer reduced to a title or a company. A good friend
Mhm.
of mine, Gregory Tull, who's actually on this conversation today, I remember gave a session about this, and he talked
Mhm.
about in networking events how we say, what do you do, or who are you representing, who are you here with, basically
Mhm.
saying that your value to me is the company that you represent, not who you are as an individual, but the company that you represent. And
Mhm.
I think that resumes push us even further in that direction by reducing you to these things that are quantifiable, as opposed to LinkedIn, which can allow you to tell a story
Yeah.
about who you are and why you want to connect, and why maybe eventually down the road you may be an attractive candidate, but more immediately why you would be a valuable connection for somebody, regardless of where
Absolutely.
that relationship goes. Do you agree with
Mhm.
that?
I absolutely agree with that. And I think, there's so many things that you said in there too. I mean, the personality elements. I mean, if you look at my about statement, for example, I start with kind of the high level stuff in the first three lines because that's what most people read. But then if you click on the see more, you'll read, I have a little bit more of my background, my story. I talk about the 2008, the recession, how I used LinkedIn to make a job change. And then I have some of my leadership philosophies. I talk about the fact that I love pie. And I mentioned in there, invite me to connect. Here's a tip, invite me to connect and tell me your favorite pie. And it's cool when I get messages from people and they're like, hey, I love appleberry pie, or I love, they give me different pie names I've never heard of before. And, it is a professional networking site. It's not a social networking site, but it doesn't mean we're not human beings. It doesn't mean we can't pull back that professional exterior a little bit and help to reveal people, because I think that helps to create a greater connection with your audience when you're not just selling all the time, but you're kind of telling a little bit too. You're giving a little bit of that storytelling approach in your profile. And you can't necessarily do that in a resume. I mean, the resume, you got to be kind of, it's a format, and I'm not a career coach. I'm not a resume writer. I think we all kind of know a good resume when we see it, right? In terms
Yeah,
of content and what's in there. And it's the same way on a LinkedIn profile. You know a good profile when you see it. You
yeah,
land on it, and it is kind of, it's rich in terms of what it has in there. There's media in there. There's personality. You get a sense of the person's voice, even though you haven't met them. You get a sense of who is this person, right?
yeah. So we've talked about one of the challenges being considering what we're using it for to begin with, not seeing it as an all-in-one sort of thing, but like there could be any number of different ways for us to use the platform. It's not just for getting a job, or it's not just for
Right.
or for attracting clients. What are one or two more challenges that you think stand in the way of people using LinkedIn effectively as a platform?
Mhm. So I'm going to go back to the invitation because you mentioned this earlier. Most people, when they send out an invitation on LinkedIn, they just send a blind invitation. It just, they click on the connect button and it sends it off, which is, it's common on other platforms. And I'll use Facebook as an example. You just click add a friend and it adds a friend request to that person and you either accept it or not. LinkedIn is different. And I wish, this is one of the features I wish they would do. I wish they would force us to put a note in there in the invitation, because I think, one, it would cut down on all the spammy invitations, the unintentional ones, I like to say, where the people are just clicking on connect, 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 connect. They don't care who you are. They're just looking to build their network. And then I think also it would force people to include some context with their invitation. And what I recommend is you use the invitation to connect with that person. And what I like to do is make the invitation all about that other person. It's not about me. It's not about what I'm trying to sell. If I'm looking for a job, I don't mention that at all. But the formula I like to use is hi, first name, have we met or not? If we haven't met, I look at their profile and I find one or two things we have in common or one or two things that are interesting to me, and I comment then on them in the invitation. Then let's connect on LinkedIn, Brenda Meller. If we have met, so for all of you who are on the session today, if you go to my profile, and I'm one of the profiles, I've changed my default button from connect to follow. So if you wanted to connect with me, you'd have to click on the more button, which is just 2 buttons to the right. When you click on the more button, you'll see an option that will either say personalize invite or connect. And then when you click on that connect, it'll say add a note or not. And you would add a note and you would say, hi, Brenda. We met on Erich's lunch chat session today. Great job. Let's connect on LinkedIn, Mark Rossi, for example. Mark, I hope you don't mind I'm using your name there. But that's a great way of, that invitation is all about that other person. You know, if you have met them, if you've been on a session with them, give them that context. Here's what we have in common. If you haven't met them, look at their profile. I mean, literally, guys, 10 or 15 seconds, look at their profile. Mention things like, we haven't met yet, but I see that we're both in Metro Detroit and we share several common connections, including Tina Marie Woolfield. Or I see that we're both members of the Troy Chamber of Commerce. Or I see we both attended Central Michigan University, fire up chips, you know, something in there that says, hey, I actually did take a minute to look at your profile. And then the ask is, let's connect on LinkedIn and then sign off with your name. It's not, visit this Calendly link to set up a phone call with me. I like to buy you a virtual cup of coffee. Here's a link to do that. Here's my website. Here's my sales pitch. Here's my webinar schedule. I mean, none of that should be in an invitation. It's kind of like, and I think about my 9-year-old daughter, we moved into this neighborhood about a year ago, and we're still getting to know our neighbors. And one day there's a little girl who lives up the block, and she's been kind of like, we watch each other from afar. And my daughter, you know, they haven't really talked and started playing, but the first time they got close enough, I said, well, let's say hi to her. And this was all we did. You know, I said, what's your name? And she told us, and I said, this is my daughter's name. And I said, how old are you? And she told us, and my daughter said how old she was. And that was it. And then they both went in the other direction. You know, it wasn't like, hey, let's do a play date, or let's spend the night at each other's house. Let's go to the pool. It's like, you got to get to know each other.
And it was the beginning of a solid relationship.
Yes, and slow that process. And like kids, that's all they need to know, what the person's name was and how old they are. That's it, yeah. You know, and then walk away.
I love that. I'm really, I don't want to make any work for the other person, and providing the context takes the work away from it for them. If you don't provide that context, you're giving them work. They have to decide, okay, do I want to accept or ignore this? If I want to accept it, why should I? What's the basis by which I should accept this? And by you giving that context, you are taking that work away. So they say, oh, I understand. You know, we were both on that HR or the Harmony Insights lunch date together, or, you know, I heard about you through so-and-so, and the work is out of it. Great. I either dig what you're saying and I accept it, or, you know, it's not something I'm interested in.
Yeah. Some people are like, no, I only want to connect with you if we've met. And I respect that. You know, not every invitation I send out is going to get accepted, you know, either because you're not on LinkedIn, you don't accept invitations from people you don't know, you think I'm going to sell to you even though I haven't. What I find though is that the people that are receptive to growing their network are usually open to that message. And I think they appreciate the fact too, Erich, that I'm holding back. I'm not pushing a sales message in that first step. Even if you think I might eventually sell to you, you appreciate the fact that I didn't yet. Yeah. And, you know, you're open to at least continuing the dialogue if you do accept.
So here's the thing, Brenda, I'm looking at the fact that we only have 3 minutes left. And for the first time, no, it's not for the first time, but this is the first time I may actually suggest this. I promise this goes until 12:30 and then people are able to leave. I want to sort of extend this conversation. Normally I would have people unmute themselves and stick around to ask questions as sort of an after piece of it. But with your permission, if people want to stick around past 12:30, I would love to be able to continue this conversation longer than the 30 minutes that we typically would. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. I think I've got another call. I'm in Michigan, so I've got another call at 2:00 my time. So I just need like a 10-minute break before that.
No
but we
problem.
Can go, you know, another 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so rather than cutting you off now, I would like to go just a little bit longer and invite anybody who wants to stay around with us. If you need to go about your afternoon at 12:30, you're welcome to. But I would love for people to stick around as we continue the conversation here. And we'll just throw it in now in case anybody does have to leave, Brenda. Okay. As people are hearing what you have to say, they want to hear more from you. Where can they find you online?
So I dropped into chat my LinkedIn URL, Brenda Meller. It's in there. And then I also have a company page for Meller Marketing. Meller is M-E. You can look me up. You can Google me, Meller Marketing. I'm on every major social platform. So whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of those places, you can look up and follow and connect with me. Or, you can go old school, Brenda@mellermarketing.com. You can email me. Happy to continue the conversation, and through my website you can learn about my upcoming events, webinars, all that other good stuff too.
And we should say July 29th, you and I are having
Oh.
another conversation that you were going to put out over both LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live,
Mm-hmm.
on the topic of networking for introverts, which is one of
Yeah.
my favorites. And I feel like you and I are just going to have a fantastic conversation about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Eric. It's going to be a lot of fun. So for those of you, if you've watched LinkedIn Live before, you're probably familiar with it, but you get like a live notification when the person goes up. LinkedIn hasn't quite perfected the process yet. Like on Facebook, you actually can follow the page and you get notifications. LinkedIn's a little bit different. So you got to be following the person or following the company page, and then you'll get a notification to go on and watch them. You can also go to their timeline later on that day and watch the playback. It's getting a little bit better in terms of the process, but yeah, there's an opportunity for improvement, I think,
We'll
there
be
too.
there. And then connecting with you on LinkedIn is going to be the easiest way for them to figure out how to
Yeah.
join us at, I think it's noon Eastern time on July 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to this conversation on LinkedIn, Greg has asked, what exactly happens on the LinkedIn side when someone follows you? So I think we're familiar with connecting with each other, but the
Mm-hmm.
follow piece is always just a little bit hazy. So what do you know about being followed or following somebody else on LinkedIn?
That's a really great question. So to back this up, the difference between connecting and following, there's several. I mean, when you connect with a person, someone sends the invitation and the other person needs to accept. So there's kind of a two-way exchange of that invitation, if you will. So I send an invitation to Eric, Eric has to accept it. And then once we're first level connections on LinkedIn, we have the ability to message each other back unlimited. Whereas if we're not yet connected, you can do something called an in-mail, and I think LinkedIn gives you like 15 free in-mails a month, or if you have the paid premium or some other version, you can do more than that. But you don't have permission. And what I mean by that is you have permission from LinkedIn, but the person hasn't accepted an invitation where they're giving you that permission. So I think when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you're building a professional relationship with them. There's some element of trust and some element of it makes sense for us to be connected on LinkedIn to occur. With connections, you can only have 30,000. I know only sounds like, only 30,000 is a lot, but you can only have 30,000. So as long as if you're super active on LinkedIn, at some point, if you keep adding people in, you're going to reach that 30,000 threshold. And you might have, and we go back to this quality versus quantity issue, you might have a lot of junk connections in there, meaning people who are not active on LinkedIn, or they're just not in your target audience. They're not ideal clients or referral opportunities. They're maybe not in your geography. They're in different countries and different areas of the world where it doesn't make sense necessarily. So the other element is you can follow someone, and follow is one way. So follow is I can go on Michael Nadler's profile, for example, and there's the connect button. And if I go into more, I can go under and there's a little option that says follow. So when I click on follow, that automatically happens. Then what I can do is see any information that Michael is sharing publicly, which would typically include posts that he is putting out. If he is liking or commenting on other people's activity, I'll start to see that in my homepage feed as well as his posts. So it's a way for me to see their activity without waiting for Michael to accept that invitation back. I don't have the ability to message Michael back and forth on a one-to-one basis, but I can still see what he's talking about on LinkedIn and I can see his activity. So does that make sense? And company pages, you can only follow them. You can't connect with the company page because the company is like an entity. You can't connect, like a human being, like a person.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a difference there in terms of company pages versus profiles. If you are self-employed, I would recommend that you have a company page, set it up, claim it, get some branding up there as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. That's really helpful. I would like to hear your tips. So we have people on the call who are in job transition, and we just had a question come through that maybe we can, that will help us tee up that part. But we also have some people who are, we'll just say service providers, have their own company that are coaches. I know Susan Barbie is on, and she is a career coach. We have Kelly from us, who's, I believe, is with DuPage Sherm. So she's representing an association. And how are we'll start with that side of things. How can people use LinkedIn if they are um, looking to build connections either in terms of growing their client base or their
Mhm.
membership base? How can people, without getting too sort of into the nitty gritty, how can people come at LinkedIn as a tool to help them build this audience, we'll say?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One is by posting content that is relevant and interesting to that ideal target audience. So I'm gonna use the membership organization example as one. So what you could do is, and I'll just say you're like a chamber of commerce. So I see my local Troy Chamber of Commerce doing this. So they'll pick members to feature in their posts, and then they'll tag the member and they'll tag the company as a part of it. And they might say, check out at Meller Marketing, at Brenda Meller offers free LinkedIn for job seekers webinars. You can learn more about these by connecting with her or something. So they'll kind of do profiles of some of their featured members. And then at the bottom, they might put a subtle sales pitch, and it might say, if you're interested in joining the Troy member, visit our website or check out our upcoming events, type of a thing. So it's a way of creating a little bit of that fear of missing out, like FOMO kind of concept. So when you profile other members, you're like, oh, I wish they're giving, wow, that was really nice of them to give that shout out to Brenda Meller. Like, I want to get my business featured. And you might say, well, that's a benefit of membership. So if you join the Troy Chamber, you get yourself featured as a part of that. So think about what appeals to your target audience. And when you're thinking about why do people join that organization for membership, think about that as a driver for content. So why do I join a chamber? Well, I'm looking to join the chamber so that I can grow my business, so I can get more visibility for myself. And, you're paying for something. So, how do you get value out of that? So let's demonstrate those things with our posts, and kind of think about our ideal target audience as we're creating those posts. What is going to appeal and resonate with those individuals? And even better is if you could incorporate real people, real businesses in those examples to demonstrate what you're doing and how you're helping your members. There was
That's
a
fantastic.
two-part question. That was one part, and the other part, I'm blanking. I'm
Well,
sorry.
so this is actually a good segue to the second piece, which is, and I hear you saying if you are an organization or a sole proprietor, association of some sort, putting out content that you want to be known for and inviting other people to
Mm-hmm.
engage with it. I've given advice to folks in job transition to think of themselves as an organization, to say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now when you're in this position to be looking for work, you're also in a
Yeah,
position to be building a reputation and letting people know what you're interested in, what your area of expertise is,
absolutely.
and writing and posting original content and articles. So not
Mm-hmm.
just the content in your feed, but articles to LinkedIn that you want to be known for, getting those shared is one way for folks in job transition, like those who own their own companies or are part of associations,
Mm-hmm.
to put out what they want to be known for. What are some other things that folks in job transition can do,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're not going in for the ask right off the bat? They
Yeah.
just want the
Mm-hmm.
connection. What can they do to move from that connection eventually to presenting themselves as attractive candidates for open positions?
So, think about your target company list, and, make sure you've defined that, who are ideal companies you'd like to work for, and look up their companies on LinkedIn, follow the company page. And you may even want to do this, like do this in an Excel spreadsheet where you've got hyperlinks in there. So like once a week, you can go back to that company page and visit it again and start making yourself a familiar name. And you can do that by liking the post, by adding a comment on the post. You start to become like this highly engaged fan where they're like, oh, that Brenda person's always liking our posts. And recruiters see that. I mean, they're going to look at the page activity and they're going to notice, oh, this person's always, engaging with our post. Oh, I think her name sounds familiar. Didn't she apply for a position? And then it's a way to kind of pull yourself out of that stack, if you will, and get your name pulled up to the top of the list. The other thing you can do is on the company page, you can see all employees. There's a little button that says see all employees. And when you click on that, then you can see a list of the employees that work at that company. And then you can start to visit their profile and then apply the earlier technique I taught you. And if you're looking to work at that company, I would not put that in the invitation. I might say, hi, Stephen, we haven't met yet, but I see that we're both in Pittsburgh and we share several common connections in the leadership and training space. Let's connect on LinkedIn, Brenda Meller. Then after Stephen accepts my invitation, after, not if, right? After Stephen accepts my invitation, then I follow up with a note and I say, thanks, Stephen, for accepting my invitation. I see that you work at ABC company. I'm currently evaluating career opportunities. I was wondering if you might be open to a phone call just to tell me what it's like working there. I'm not asking you for a job, just wanted to ask you a couple questions. So I give them an
Okay.
out, and I also take the pressure off by saying I'm not asking for a job. I don't push my resume over to Steven at that point or anything. And try that, let's say if I'm trying to apply for a marketing position and I know the hiring manager, the head of the department is a VP of marketing or chief marketing officer, I'm not going to go for that person because they're too busy and they're getting flooded by people trying to do what I'm doing. So I'm going to instead go to the graphic designer or the writer or some other person in the department, or maybe in a different department altogether at that company, and try to connect with them. The lower level team members, try that approach, because you might get somebody in the customer service role who says, yeah, I'd be happy to chat with you. You get on the phone, again, reiterate, I'm not asking for your job. I'm not asking you to help me get a job. I just want to ask some questions about the company. And then you come prepared with, 3 to 5 questions. What do you like most about working there? How would you describe the culture? What was the hiring process like for you going through, and any tips for people? And then if the person does say, bringing up a conversation, well, what are you looking for? And if they ask you, have you applied for positions, then you bring that into the conversation, but let them pull that conversation out as opposed to pushing yourself through in the position.
Excellent. That's so helpful. I think that that's a great approach, and we're hearing from people in the chat as well that they love that approach. I have kind of built on that in different ways. If it isn't specific about an opportunity, focusing on a shared interest or an area of expertise. So say, Brenda, you're running this fantastic organization, you have all these employees, I see something you've posted, some article, and I say, I'd love to connect with you and learn from you here. I always start that way. I think that's really
Yeah.
flattering if you say, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn and learn from you
Mm-hmm.
going forward, regardless of what your needs are. Then in a follow-up say, you just wrote this fantastic article. I love these specific points about it. Marketing also happens to be an interest of mine. I'm
Right.
thinking in my head, I'm in job transition looking for a marketing position.
Yeah.
Marketing is an interest of mine. I would love to hear more about your perspective, your experience in marketing, especially as it relates to this point that you made in your article. Would you have a little bit of time on the phone? If I am remaining focused solely on being of service to you,
Mm-hmm.
and asking you about you and keeping that spotlight on you, naturally at some point, Brenda Meller is going to say, Erich, I've been doing all this talking. I really appreciate these questions. I don't know the first thing about you. Tell me what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, I'm a marketing professional. I'm looking for a role. I'm looking at different opportunities, but
Yeah.
conversations like this are really helpful to me as I continue to get clarity over where I am going to be able to do my best work and
Yeah.
contribute. Now, suddenly, at no point have I pitched you on me as a candidate? Have I,
Right. Mm-hmm.
asked about open positions you have? But given our back and forth and me remaining focused on being of service to you, it naturally comes up. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we go into these conversations thinking, well, I need a job. And we're so focused on that we get in our
Yeah.
own way in terms of building those meaningful relationships on LinkedIn or elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And related to that too, I get asked from a lot of people too, can we jump on a call? Can I pick your brain? Can I do, and as I get busier and busier with my business, and also, my business is taking a hit too. So anytime I'm spending on a call with somebody is time I'm not spending getting proposal work done or getting paid client work done.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I like to say, if you're doing that ask, would you be open to a phone call sometime? Give them an or if you're too busy, do you have any recommendations on professional organizations or virtual meetups that might be helpful to someone looking to learn more about marketing? So give them an either or
Yeah.
type of thing. And I've had a couple people that kind of press the question on the let's have a phone call, and I haven't answered. And I got this one guy, he's like trying to do the buy me a cup of coffee approach, and he's trying to sell to me. And I've already kind of politely told him, no, I'm not interested twice. And he keeps pushing, and he's like, here's a demo, here's this, here's that. And at some point, I've already said, I don't think this solution is a good solution for me. I appreciate you asking. And I gave him he was from a different country, and there were some grammar things in his message. I said, would you be open to some feedback? He had the dollar sign in the wrong place when he was showing like the value of his solution. And I gently asked, would you open to some feedback? And I gave him that feedback, and he said yes. And then he pushed me again. Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? But at least give the either
The man likes his
or route.
coffee.
Yeah, I'm like, I love coffee, but I've got my own
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah. Well, Brenda, this has been so great. I wish we had so much more time. At this point, when did you say you needed to jump off to prepare for your next conversation?
Next 5 minutes or so
Okay,
here.
so here's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. I want to thank you first and foremost for spending time with us. You've already let people know that they can find you on LinkedIn and
Mhm.
elsewhere. I'm going to follow up via email with links to any resources that you may have to share with attendees. And so we'll include
Okay.
ways to get in touch with you in that email. So watch for that this afternoon. If everybody else has enjoyed this conversation, hopefully you will go back to harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates and sign up for some that are coming up. I have a few that I'm really excited about within the next couple of weeks on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mm.
race relations. I mean, 30 minutes is hardly sufficient for that conversation, but we're gonna kind of scratch the surface and see what we can cover in that time. Next Friday is Steve Brown, VP of HR for La Rosa's Pizzeria in Ohio, and he's all over the place, very well connected. People say the most well connected person in human resources. So I'm really excited for that, as well as Jennifer McClure the following Friday, who is the CEO of Disrupt HR, and then Unbridled Talent, I think, is her own company. So many great conversations coming up, and I'll be the first to let you know that I just threw in a new pop-up panel. We've done 2 of them so far, where I choose panelists in the moment from
Mhm.
volunteers, and the topic for this pop-up panel is going to be vulnerability, which is a topic that has come up fairly regularly in these lunch dates. So you can find out about the pop-up panel, all upcoming conversations at harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. I would love to
Great.
have you back. In the meantime, if you need to take off now, you're welcome to do so. If you want to stick around for just a few minutes, maybe we'll have time for 1 or maybe 2 questions, and then we'll go about our day. But in the meantime, Brenda, thank you so much again for spending your time with us this afternoon.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.